Have you ever looked at a masterpiece, like, say, Michelangelo's David, and wondered not just about, how beautiful it is, but the incredible human story behind it, the history?
Yeah, the drama, the context that shaped it.
Exactly. So today we're taking a deep dive into the extraordinary life and iconic works of Michelangelo Buonarroti.
And our mission, really, is to unpack the stories behind that genius. Understand the complex world he lived in.
Navigated.
Navigated, yeah. And uncover some surprising details, the things that make his art still resonate, like centuries later.
To do this, we've pulled together, well, quite a stack of sources, detailed historical accounts of his big commissions,
Insights into how he worked, his artistic process, his personal life, too.
and of course, analyses of his huge impact on the Renaissance and, well, everything that came after. So let's jump into the world of Michelangelo.
Okay, so Michelangelo di Lodovico Buonarroti Simoni. He was born in Caprese, Italy, 1475, right smack in the middle of the Italian Renaissance.
A pretty vibrant time to be born, especially for an artist.
Absolutely, and he showed this incredible talent, like really young.
But it's interesting, isn't it, that his own father wasn't thrilled about it. He apparently saw art as a petty, unimportant occupation.
Yeah, that's right. It's quite something.
How common was that attitude back then? And do you think that kind of early pushback maybe fueled Michelangelo's ambition? Or that famous stubborn streak he had?
That's a great point. While art was definitely gaining status with patrons, it wasn't always seen as the most noble path, especially for a family with some, minor aristocratic ties like his.
Right.
So for Michelangelo, yeah, that opposition probably lit a fire under him, gave him something to prove, I'll show you, petty.
Definitely. And despite his dad, he gets apprenticed to Domenico Ghirlandaio in Florence at just 13.
13, yeah. And here's the kicker. He starts getting paid as an artist after only 1 year. That was pretty unusual.
Wow, so his talent was just undeniable, even then.
Clearly, it just shone through immediately.
In Florence at that time,
Yeah.
it really was this crucible, wasn't it? Art, power, learning.
Oh, absolutely. The leading center in Italy. You had art sponsored by the Signoria, the town council, the merchant guilds.
And the big patrons, of
Yeah.
course. How did that whole environment, that crucible, as you called it, really shape him beyond just giving him jobs?
Well, it wasn't just about opportunities, this mix of, high art and raw politics. It wasn't just a backdrop. It forged that fierce independence in him.
Ah, okay.
It's where he learned not just the craft, but also maybe how to push back to challenge things, which he did his whole life.
Right, and he attended the Platonic Academy.
Run by the Medici.
Yeah, sponsored by them. And this wasn't just like art school. It was a think tank,
Yeah.
basically. He's soaking up ideas from Plato, Marsilio Ficino, Pico della Mirandola.
Big humanist thinkers.
Exactly. Ideas about ideal beauty, the divine spark in the human form. You see that stuff directly in his sculptures later on.
You can definitely see it starting in those early pieces, like the Madonna of the Stairs, his first known marble, right? Yep. Carved in shallow relief. And you already see that characteristic twisting motion that becomes his signature.
And the Battle of the Centaurs, too, commissioned by Lorenzo de' Medici himself.
Lorenzo the Magnificent, yeah. Poliziano, another figure from the Academy, apparently suggested the theme, Florence was just. It was his launching pad. He called it a haven that gave him hope.
And he stayed loyal to Florence, didn't he, throughout his life?
He really did, even when he was working elsewhere.
Now, the Medici, we have to talk about them. They weren't just art lovers, were they?
Oh, no way. They were a major power, a huge banking family, basically running Florence. The Medici Bank was the biggest in Europe in the 15th century.
Wow.
And Lorenzo the Magnificent, he wasn't just a patron. He actually invited the young Michelangelo into his home, let him study his collection of ancient sculptures. Huge deal for a young artist.
And it wasn't all philosophy and sculpture gardens, was it? That Patti conspiracy, 1478, that sounds brutal.
It was incredibly brutal. An attempt to overthrow the Medici by killing Lorenzo and his brother Giuliano during Easter Mass.
In church.
In the cathedral, yeah. Giuliano was killed. Lorenzo managed to escape, wounded. And the revenge was swift and public. Conspirators hunted down, hanged from the windows of the Palazzo Vecchio.
Good grief. And Michelangelo was growing up seeing this. How old would he have been?
Just a toddler when it happened, but the aftermath, the stories, the tension, it was the air he breathed as he grew up in Florence.
How do you think that exposure to, well, raw political violence shows up in his art later? Does it give it that intensity, that feeling of struggle?
I think it absolutely does. Witnessing that kind of brutality, seeing power shifts, seeing his own patrons eventually exiled.
Right, the Medici got kicked out for a while.
Yeah, between 1494 and 1512, Savonarola rises up, this fiery preacher, and Michelangelo actually leaves Florence then, goes to Venice, then Bologna.
So he understood fragility, power, freedom. Those themes seem baked into his work, don't they?
Definitely. From the defiance of David to the chaos of the Last Judgment, it wasn't abstract for him.
Okay, so he leaves Florence during that upheaval, but eventually he makes his way to Rome, June 1496. He's 21.
Right. And Rome presents, even bigger challenges, bigger stages.
He gets a commission for a statue of Bacchus first, the wine god.
He did, yeah. But it got rejected. Maybe a bit too pagan, perhaps. We don't know for sure. But then he gets the big one.
The Pietà?
Exactly. November 1497, Cardinal Jean de Blair-le-Grolles, the French ambassador, commissions him to carve a Pietà. Contract signed August 98.
And this statue, Mary grieving over Jesus, he finishes it when he's just 24, and it's an instant masterpiece.
Instantly recognized, yeah. It's stunning.
But it wasn't just technically brilliant, was it? The depiction was different. Mary's shown crushed by grief. Christ's body is described as spotless, no agony, veins looking alive.
Right. It's a really unique take.
What was revolutionary about that choice?
Yeah.
Beyond just the beauty, what did it say?
Well, that's key. It wasn't just about technical skill. By choosing this idealized beauty over, say, graphic suffering, Michelangelo was tapping into that Renaissance idea again, divinity through human perfection.
So less about the physical agony, more about a kind of transcendent grace.
Precisely. It shifts the focus. It suggests that even in death, there's this divine beauty, this perfection. It challenged the more traditional, often gruesome depictions of the Passion.
And it's the only piece he ever signed, right? His name's right there on Mary's sash.
The only one we know of, yeah. Still there in St. Peter's today, which tells you, I think, how proud he was of it, how significant he knew it was, even then.
He must have known he'd nailed it.
Oh, I think so.
Now, tied into that realism, that perfection of form, was his obsession with anatomy. He was known as a master anatomist.
Absolutely. He had this deep fascination with the human body, how it worked underneath the skin.
And he actually got permission, after Lorenzo de' Medici died, to dissect human corpses at a church hospital.
Yeah, Santa Maria de Santo Spirito. He needed to see it firsthand. He knew exactly where every muscle was, how they connected, how they created movement and tension.
And that knowledge feeds directly into the art. The musculature becomes, as one source said, the protagonist of the body.
Exactly. It's not just surface realism. It's about conveying drama, tension, the inner life of the figure through the body itself.
There were even those wild rumors, right? Probably not true, but the fact they existed says something. Like him killing a man to study the crucifixion.
Yeah, those rumors circulated. Almost certainly untrue, but they speak volumes about his intensity, his almost fanatical dedication to getting it right. People believed he might do something like that.
Okay, so he's back in Florence around 1499, and the Guild of Wool approaches him about a giant block of marble.
Yes. An unfinished project started like 40 years earlier, a huge statue of David.
From this block of Carrara marble that everyone else had basically given up on, described as badly blocked out and supine.
That's the one. The workers called it Il Gigante, the giant. Other sculptors had looked at it and said, nope, can't be done, it's ruined.
So what kind of confidence, or maybe just sheer nerve, does it take for Michelangelo, still only 26, to look at that rejected stone and see David inside?
It's incredible, isn't it? It speaks to that almost superhuman self-belief he had. And this unique vision, seeing potential where others saw only flaws.
He gets the official contract, August 1501, starts carving a month later. Agrees to finish it in 2 years.
Yeah, for 6 gold florins a month. Not a huge amount, actually.
And the plan was originally to put it way up high on the cathedral roofline.
That's right, which explains those slightly odd proportions people sometimes notice, the large head, the really big right hand.
Ah, so they were meant to look right from way down below. Perspective correction.
Exactly. Designed to be seen from a distance, foreshortened. Clever stuff.
Now, his David is so different from the earlier ones, Donatello's, Verrocchio's. They show David after the fight, usually standing over Goliath's head.
Or Andrea del Castagno's, which shows him mid-swing. But Michelangelo goes for that moment before. David is wary. He's sizing up Goliath.
A brow is drawn. The neck's tense.
The veins bulging in that right hand, yeah. It's all coiled energy.
What was he saying by choosing that moment? Anticipation, not triumph.
I think it was profound. It wasn't just about the physical victory to come. It was about the mental preparation, the courage, the focus before the
The
action.
decision.
The decision, exactly, that internal moment. It makes David less of a simple hero figure and more of a thinking, feeling individual, which is very much in line with Renaissance humanism.
And he uses that classical contrapposto pose, right? Weight on one leg, creating that slight S-curve.
Yes, channeling ancient Greek heroic nudes like Polykleidos's Dorphoros, but he imbues it with this new psychological tension. It's classical form, but Renaissance feeling.
And it immediately became this symbol for Florence, didn't it? Florentine freedom, the citizen soldier defending the Republic.
Instantly. It perfectly captured that spirit of defiant independence Florence prided itself on.
The process of carving it sounds almost as intense as the statue itself. He worked like a man possessed, slept in his boots.
That's what his contemporaries said, yeah. Constantly thinking about it, terrified of making one wrong move with the chisel on that already compromised block.
And just getting that marble in the first place, hauling a massive, flawless block from Carrara. That was a huge undertaking back then.
Monumental. Finding a block that big without natural cracks or flaws, using just hand tools, hammers, chisels. It took days. Incredible skill and labor.
And he was secretive, too. Built a fence around it.
Apparently so. Afraid of spies, people stealing his ideas. He was working under immense pressure and scrutiny.
He even wrote poetry about the physical struggle, didn't he? Something about the hammer bending to his will, but God guiding it.
Yeah, the hammer that chisels a human figure out of the hard stone must bend to my will, but it is God's will that guides my hammer to create the magnificent. It shows that blend of immense ego and also a sense of divine purpose in his work.
And the choice to make it freestanding, viewable from all sides, that was unusual, too.
Highly unusual for the time. Most large sculptures were still meant for niches or against walls.
So what did that 360-degree view symbolize? That idea of human freedom and self-determination?
It was revolutionary, really. It forces you, the viewer, to engage with the figure completely, to walk around it. It embodies that Renaissance idea of man as the center, capable, independent, not confined. It's an assertion of mastery, but also of the subject's autonomy.
And those tiny details you mentioned, little heart in the eye, holes in the hair, what were those for?
Little tricks, really. Designed to catch the light, create effects from a distance. The heart might give a glint of life, the holes adding texture to the curls. It shows how meticulously he thought about perception.
What about the anatomical details, the small genitals, the foreskin?
Yeah.
People comment on those.
Right. Well, the size is consistent with classical Greek ideals of heroism and restraint, which Renaissance artists emulated. It wasn't about modern notions of realism in that sense.
And the foreskin, given David was Jewish.
Also generally consistent with Renaissance art conventions. You see it on depictions of the Christ child, too. It was more about artistic tradition referencing classical nudity than strict historical or religious accuracy in that specific detail.
Fascinating. So it was finished in 1504. And a committee, including Botticelli and Leonardo da Vinci.
Talk about a power panel.
Right. They decide where to put it. Not on the cathedral, but down in the main square, the Piazza della Signoria.
In front of the Palazzo Vecchio, the seat of government, a very political statement.
But it had a rough start, damaged by stones during the move.
Yeah, took 4 days to move it, and some anti-Medici partisans apparently threw stones at it. And then much later, in 1991, someone attacked it with a hammer, broke a toe.
Oh, no. And it's developed microfractures from vibrations.
Sadly, yes. In the ankles, mainly from the sheer weight and maybe vibrations from millions of visitors over the years. It's quite fragile, actually.
Which is why the original is now safe inside the Accademia Gallery.
Exactly. And the replica stands in the piazza, which, interestingly, got a bronze fig leaf added later.
Modesty prevails, eventually.
Sometimes.
Okay, so he's conquered sculpture on a monumental scale.
Yep.
But then comes a project he famously didn't want. Painting. The Sistine Chapel ceiling.
Right. This follows a period of intense frustration for him. He had been working on this massive tomb for Pope Julius II.
Bought all the marble for it.
Spent months at Carrara selecting it, huge expense and effort, and then Julius basically pulls the funding.
To rebuild St. Peter's Basilica instead.
Exactly. Michelangelo was furious. He felt betrayed, humiliated. He actually stormed off back to Florence, vowed never to return to Rome.
But Julius summons him back. For painting. Michelangelo, the sculptor.
Yep. Summons him back and commissions him to paint the ceiling of the Pope's private chapel, the Sistine Chapel.
And he resists, famously says.
I do not wish to attend to anything but the tomb and not the painting. He kept insisting, painting is not my profession.
So how did Julius II convince him? Was he just that forceful, the warrior pope?
Julius was definitely forceful, incredibly ambitious, used to getting his way. He probably used a mix of pressure, appeals to ego, maybe even threats. Plus, you didn't lightly refuse the Pope.
I guess not. So Michelangelo takes it on. 4 intense years, 1508 to 1512.
4 years lying on his back on scaffolding, paint dripping in his eyes. It was grueling.
And the result? I mean, it's staggering. Over 500 square meters, 300 figures.
It's immense. 9 central scenes from Genesis, flanked by prophets and sibyls. Just an overwhelming vision.
The most famous being the creation of Adam. That near touching of fingers between God and Adam.
Iconic. Absolutely iconic.
What's the message there? God and man at finger level, this divine dialogue. Man seems almost equal in a way.
That's a really insightful way to put it. It emphasizes that direct connection, the spark passing between creator and created. Man isn't just passive, he's receiving life, intellect, potential. He's independent and autonomous, as one source puts it. Very humanist.
It celebrates human potential.
Definitely. And think about the technical challenge. He's painting this complex scene knowing it will be viewed from 20 meters below.
He had to account for the perspective, right? Like making Adam's foot bigger so it looks right from the ground.
Exactly. He had this incredible spatial intelligence. He's exaggerating anatomy, using foreshortening brilliantly so it all reads correctly from the floor.
And the figures themselves, they have that muscular power, but also some faces seem quite feminine, graceful.
Yes, that reflects a Renaissance ideal of androgyny, actually. The idea that the most perfect form blends masculine strength with feminine grace. It was seen as closer to the divine.
So it wasn't just aesthetics, it was philosophical.
It was tied into Neoplatonic ideas about ideal beauty. His figures seem powerful, yet almost weightless. It's a real celebration of being human, as you said.
Okay, fast forward 25 years. He's much older now. He comes back to the Sistine Chapel.
Called back again, this time by Pope Clement VII, though he finishes it under Paul III.
To paint the huge altar wall. The Last Judgment. 1534 to 1541.
And if the ceiling was awe-inspiring, the Last Judgment was controversial. Shocking, even.
Almost 400 figures, right? Mostly nude. Swirling around Christ the Judge.
A massive vortex of bodies rising, falling, judged. And it was revolutionary because it kind of blurred the lines between the saved and the damned. It's not a neat separation. The cards are deliberately shuffled, as one analysis put it.
And the big scandal was, even the saints are naked before Christ.
Yes,
Wow.
stripped bare. That was a huge challenge to the church at the time. Saints were venerated, prayed to for intercession, showing them naked, vulnerable, subject to judgment just like everyone else.
It bypasses the church's role as mediator.
That's how many saw it. It emphasized a direct, terrifying encounter with divine judgment. No hiding behind status or sanctity. Very radical.
And he puts himself in it, as the flayed skin held by St. Bartholomew.
He does. A self-portrait on flayed skin. Interpreted in so many ways, immense ego, profound humility, a comment on his own suffering as an artist. Who knows for sure?
It's quite a statement.
And placing the mouth of hell right over the altar where the Pope says Mass, that wasn't subtle either.
Wow. Definitely seems like a criticism.
It was widely perceived as such. He was pushing boundaries, even questioning the institution that was paying him.
Which leads to that famous quote, a later pope wants the nudes covered up.
Yes, Daniele d'Altera was hired to paint loincloths on many figures after Michelangelo's death, earning him the nickname Il Brigatone, the breeches maker. But before that, when a papal official complained about the nudity during the painting...
No, I mean the story about the Pope asking him directly to fix it.
Ah, yes. The story goes, a newly elected pope, or maybe a master of ceremonies, suggested he should make the figures more decent. And Michelangelo supposedly shot back. Tell His Holiness that this is a small matter and easily rectified. Let him set the world right, and paintings will quickly follow.
Classic Michelangelo, defiant to the end.
Absolutely. Total confidence in his vision.
Now, preserving all this, millions of people visit the chapel every year. Their breath, dust, it damages the frescoes.
Hugely. The sheer volume of visitors creates problems with CO2 levels, humidity, dust particles, all potentially harmful to the delicate plaster and pigments.
So they have this high-tech conservation system now. Sensors measuring everything.
Yeah, a really sophisticated system. 10 sensors constantly monitoring airflow, CO2, particles, ozone.
Wow.
All that data goes to a control center, and the system adjusts ventilation, filtration. It can completely renew the air in the chapel, All 10,000 cubic meters of it up to 60 times a day.
That's incredible, just to keep the environment stable.
Exactly. Keep CO2 and dust below strict limits. Plus, regular inspections and cleaning.
It really highlights how fragile these masterpieces are, doesn't it? We think of them as timeless, but they need constant, intensive care.
It's a constant battle. It shows the immense human effort required just to preserve this heritage. These things don't just survive on their own. We have to actively protect them.
So looking back at his whole life,
Yeah.
this monumental journey, what are the big takeaways? He's often compared to Leonardo da Vinci.
Right, his great contemporary and rival in some ways.
Leonardo was the charming one, like of the party, but maybe less focused, left things unfinished.
That's the general picture, yeah. Charming, witty, incredibly diverse interests, but perhaps a perfectionist who struggled to complete projects. Michelangelo, on the other hand.
More of a loner, intense, passionate, totally consumed by his work.
Exactly. Deeply committed, almost obsessive sometimes. But both were absolute titans. Visionaries, scientists, all-around Renaissance men.
Pushing boundaries everywhere.
Definitely. But in different ways. Michelangelo's science was laser-focused on anatomy, the muscular system, how to make his figures powerful, real, full of energy.
While Leonardo was dissecting bodies to understand everything and designing flying machines.
Right. Leonardo had much broader interests. Flying machines, hydraulics, botany, optics, alongside his art. Michelangelo's focus was tighter, more centered on the human form as the ultimate expressive vehicle.
Now, on a more personal level, sources talk about his relationships, particularly with men, like the young nobleman Tommaso dei Cavalieri.
Yes, that relationship is well documented through letters and poems. Michelangelo clearly had deep emotional attachments to some men.
Which wasn't necessarily uncommon then, especially older men mentoring younger men.
The dynamics were complex and different from modern categories, but intense same-sex bonds, often with an age difference, were certainly a feature of the era, particularly in artistic and intellectual circles.
And he wrote poems, drew pictures for Cavalieri. This was known, even by the Pope.
It seems to have been quite widely known, yes. The poems especially are incredibly passionate.
How does understanding this personal side, these deep emotional connections, help us understand the art? Does it fuel that idealized beauty, that human emotion we see?
I think it has to. His art is so charged with emotion, with an intense focus on the idealized yet dramatically potent human body. These personal passions expressed in his poems likely fed into that artistic wellspring.
Though many of those poems were later changed, weren't they? Pronouns shifted to female before publication.
Yes, his grandnephew altered many of them posthumously to obscure the original homoerotic nature, reflecting later societal pressures and sodomy laws that existed. But the original intensity is clear.
But he and Cavalieri remained close friends right until Michelangelo's death.
They did. Tommaso was there at his deathbed. It was clearly a profound, lifelong bond.
And later, he had a close friendship with the poet Vittoria Colonna.
Yes, a very important platonic friendship in his later years. She was a noblewoman, a widow, highly intelligent and pious. They exchanged poems, drawings, had deep spiritual conversations.
So a complex emotional life fueling that incredible output.
Absolutely. His inner world was clearly as rich and intense as his art.
He lived to be 88. That's ancient for that time.
Remarkable longevity. He outlived Leonardo and Raphael by over 40 years, saw huge changes in the world.
And kept working even in old age. Took on St. Peter's Basilica at 71.
Reluctantly at first, but yes, he took over the design, completely changed Bramante's original plan, designed that incredible dome.
And made sure it would be finished his way after he died.
He did. His force of will was just immense right to the end.
So he's one of the three giants of the Florentine High Renaissance.
Absolutely. Alongside Leonardo and Raphael, his powerful dramatic style just shaped everything that came after. Generations of artists were inspired or even reacted against his terribilità, that awesome power in his work.
And his understanding of the body, not just anatomy, but the body as a way to express ideas, drama, good versus evil.
That's key. He used the human form to communicate profound philosophical and spiritual struggles. That's why his art still feels relevant, still speaks to us.
He really was a profound visionary, wasn't he? His name is still shorthand for artistic genius.
Synonymous with it. He continues to fascinate scholars, artists, millions of people every year.
So there you have it, Michelangelo. Not just a sculptor, painter, architect, poet.
But yeah, a visionary who really dared to redefine art, culture, even how we think about human potential.
His work, from that heart-wrenching Pietà to the defiant David, the unbelievable Sistine Chapel, They aren't just beautiful objects. No, they're packed with human experience, faith, the turbulence of his times.
Exactly. These masterpieces carved from stone, painted on ceilings, they still speak volumes today. About his genius, sure, but also about timeless things, potential, struggle, the power of art.
It really makes you think, how could one person leave such a massive mark? And it raises that question, doesn't it? What other hidden truths, what other profound stories are waiting inside great works of art if we only knew the full picture behind them?
A fascinating thought. There's always more to uncover.
Well, we hope this deep dive encourages you to look closer, think deeper, and maybe continue your own exploration into the incredible stories that art holds.